Hey, what's up, everyone? James and Cuervo Negro from Junkyard Fox. Thank you so much for joining us on our first Q&A of 2025. So we're going to be answering a couple of questions that you guys have sent us. So as always, it's going to be a very relaxing video. Get yourself a drink, pull up a chair, and join us. Let's get started.
All right, so the first question, forgive my voice, I'm getting a little cold. So the first question comes from Madam Kamsalot 6384. He or she says, please talk about a favorite childhood memory related to the outdoors. Thanks. So I'll go first. My first experience the outdoors, or at least enjoying it, was we used to go to Escaratela when we were kids, and I like watching the water and throwing stones into it and feeding the ducks stuff like that I shouldn't, like hamburgers and stuff. But I remember generally enjoying being outdoors and being having cookouts and stuff like that. I just enjoyed it more because there's water there, there's animals there, you can see fishes and stuff like that. So yeah, that was my first. What about you, James?
Childhood memory relating to the outdoors. I remember going camping. It might have been spring break if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but it was a solid like 6 days of camping with my family. And I remember I was catching little snakes. They were garter snakes. It was around the time of like the crocodile hunter was all the rage. So of course I'm trying to emulate him. And we're camping, we're going fishing. I was reeling in some trout. My dad showed me how to gut them and cook them up, and just the summer rain downpour, pattering on the tent when I was a little kid, and that was really cool. Kind of a side note, it kind of not related to the outdoors, but during this adventure, I remember at one point my dad and I had to go to the nearby Walmart in town for more supplies, and it was around Star Wars Episode 2 was out, and of course I'm a big Boba Fett fanatic, and Jango Fett, his dad, was very similar. So I liked him too. And my dad bought me a little Jango Fett action figure. I still have it to this day. I never
Nice.
took it off of the box. So it got wet because it just kept raining that whole time, the little card back of the figure. But yeah, little Jango Fett from Attack of the Clones. But
Nice.
yeah, fishing and camping, and then, the summer rains and stuff like that. So good times. So Backcountry Tripper asks, since I live in the exact opposite environment as you, how does all the dust/sand affect your camping and filming? Great question. In case you've been wondering why we haven't been very active this last month, it's because the damn sandstorms. They get really bad out here. Down here in West Texas, we don't get a springtime. We just get dust. We get really bad dust storms. And this year has got to be one of the worst ones, in recent years. And it's difficult to film because we have 60-mile-an-hour winds. I mean, you see trampolines caught on power lines in the news, and keep in mind that when you're filming, setting up a tent is going to be just an absolute nightmare. Getting a fire, you're not able to because we're in a drought right now, so it's hot winds. It's like God is just going with his breath. So it's just hot winds, and of course we don't want to be catching the desert on fire. So it would be irresponsible for us to be cooking up some steaks while we got these hurricane winds. So it does slow us down with filming. Of course, it also damages equipment. Our tripods are being knocked over. Our food is being knocked over. All that dust and sand is getting into our electronics, like our cameras and stuff. And we're not Mr. Beast. We're not PewDiePie. We don't make $1 million from YouTube enough where we can replace the camera the next day. So we do have to take a step back. I know someone in the comments going to scoff and be like, that's when you should be out there testing your skills and your grit, in inclement weather like that. And yeah, if we were not filming and you just wanted to test your skills, great. But when it comes to filming, you got to look out for your equipment. You got to look out for your community. We're not going to be catching the desert on fire just because we're being impatient and selfish. And of course, your allergies are really bad. You get dust in your eyes and your nose. Uh, yeah, so that's why we've been a little kind of quiet on the channel lately because yeah, the dust storms are just really they're a nuisance.
All right, so next question comes from Jujitsu for all 8627. I love the backdrop of your music in Junkyard Fox videos. What inspires you to title your music? They're always cool and make me wonder, how do you make that name that tune? Ah, sorry. So I guess it's a different process for everybody, but I'll go with the song called "Dark Trees." I remember reading a comic book a long time ago. It was these two hunters that were, I think they were running away from something or they were looking for somebody in the forest, and then they stumbled into like a clearing, and then so it was dark, they couldn't see, and then when the light, sorry, the moonlight came through, they saw a bunch of bodies hanging from the trees, and I remember the line was something like, "Everything was cold, and the dark trees were swinging," and I was like, "Man, that's cool." And so I took inspiration from that name and made the track "Dark Trees," and just try to convey that feeling of them being in that moment and that ambience of like the darkness and the stillness of it. So it's I mean, a lot of, so that's like the name itself came first before the song did. So that's a different case. And for other songs like Te Acuerdas de Mi, that one came after I made the track. So I love the energy that was in that song and just like the rhythm, the flow of it. And I don't know, it just that just came to my head, and I was like, well, that's kind of cool. I mean, it kind of entails something like revengeful or something that's high impact and uh, action or something. So
Also, just to interject is "Te acuerdas de mí" is Spanish for "Do you remember me?" or
uh,
"Remember me." So for those of you non-Spanish speakers, so there is that. In case you were wondering what it meant or what he's talking about, like that, there is a certain threat to it or a certain like "remember me," you know.
yeah,
So
yeah, exactly how his tone, how he said it. That's the kind of vibe that went with the song. So the title kind of fit that.
you know
And
what? I'm sorry, I keep interrupting. It's I never knew that. Every time I heard that song before and it said "Te acuerdas de mí," which is "Do you remember me?" I always kind of viewed it as you're kind of saying it to like an old lover, like an old flame you haven't seen or she hasn't seen you in
mm,
forever, and you're like, "Remember me?"
yeah,
Because the song's very like flirty. It's very like
yeah.
it's dancey, and so that's how I always viewed it. I never viewed it as like a confrontation.
I mean, I guess it's very ambiguous, but uh, it's always like listening to other people's interpretation of it too. It's not always my thing because sometimes you pull things out of the metaphysical world, you know, and you don't. They just land on something, and someone can interpret it differently.
Hmm.
That's the cool thing about music. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, thanks. That's a good question, actually. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Jason Brazier 2864 asks, "Will you be doing any team up videos with other YouTubers?" Great question. We actually are getting ready to have a really fun one in a month from now. So this is early April. In early May, we are going to be taking a little road trip down to South Texas with our buddy, the legendary Bob Hansler. If you haven't seen Bob Hansler's YouTube channel, I highly recommend it. He is, in my opinion, a living legend and a big influence to us when we were first getting started, and really awesome dude. And he's down there in South Texas, and we've been wanting to collaborate forever. He just lives, about 9 hours away from us, and of course, he had health issues for a couple of years, and then I had, a health issue. So there's been some setbacks, but finally this year we're planning to camp with him in his property. He has a creek, and all this wild area. So some camping, some catching cooks, all that good stuff. Our buddy George Vasquez will be joining us as well. Now, George, he's been a prominent member of the bushcraft community, although he doesn't really have a channel, though he did start one. So fingers crossed we can get some footage for his, to kind of jumpstart it. And possibly also John from Wingman 115 may be joining us as well. So if all things go according to plan, that'll be a great, a meetup for several YouTubers right there. Uh, as for later on after May, I would like to camp with my buddy Shane, who's you've seen him in the channel before. We've camped with him before, and he's very much a primitive skills, more of the Cody Lundeen barefoot type of bushcrafter. And he he's really great at those primitive skills that I myself am not very good at. So I would love to learn from him, and he's going to be in Utah now. So first time that we have an adventure in Utah. Hopefully that one happens as well. And also possibly Tony from Random Adventures 2.0. He is a really cool guy. Check out his YouTube channel as well. And he does a lot of stealth camping videos. And of course, I've been veering more and more into stealth camping. And so we were trying to figure out when would be a cool place that where we can meet up and do a joint stealth camping adventure as well. So stay tuned. Fingers crossed, all things go according to plan. Of course, life has a tendency to throw a wrench in, your calendar. But fingers crossed these things happen because that would be really fun.
Okay, so next question comes from Phytocentric. Yeah. For Cuervo, does the music of Ennio Morricone influence your songwriting? If so, what is your favorite piece? Then for James, what are some unsung benefits of wearing traditional Western boots while in the wilderness? So, in case you didn't know, Ennio Morricone is an Italian musical composer who is famous for his works from Ecstasy of Gold and Fistful of Dollars and a lot of Sergio Leone films. And I love those works. I love those movies. But I took more inspiration from his more less popular soundtracks, like a movie called The Italian Story, and he incorporates a lot more traditional folk music into it, and it has like a spy vibe to it, and it's so like amazing. It's really cool. And but in the on the path to Cuervo, I mean, Ennio was there. I recognize his work, but he didn't really inspire a lot of it. What I wanted to do with Cuervo was to create a persona, to create the music that I wanted to hear in that kind of genre or ambient feeling of the Southwestern. So a lot of it was I'm not listening or I'm not hearing what I want to hear. So let's just make it. Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I would recommend listening to the Italian Story from Ennio Morricone. It's a very romantic score. It's very cool, multi-level kind of stuff. If you want to listen to a more contemporary artist that kind of echoes Ennio Morricone, I would say his name is Daniel Lupi. He did a lot of work with Danger Mouse, and I think they did something with like Jack White a long time ago. But Daniel Lupi made an album inspired by like Ennio Morricone style sounds, and it's really cool too. It's more contemporary. There's a lot of like trip hop and stuff like that incorporated into it. It fits. It really fits like really well. So yeah, sorry.
As for his second question, by the way, Phytocentric is my buddy Chris. Big shout out, buddy. Really smart, intelligent, really cool dude. His question was for me about what are the unsung benefits of having cowboy boots out in the wilderness. Well, keep in mind that cowboy boots go a little high; they go up to your calves. So when you're in like a sandy area, sand dunes, and that's as we were talking earlier about sand, it helps keep from getting a lot of dirt in there and thorns and stuff, little stickers that are found out here in the dirt from getting into your feet. Also, keep in mind out here we have a lot of sharp rocks and scorpions and thorns and thistles and all kinds of stuff. So it helps protect your feet from that too, as well as all the stinging insects and stuff like that. So it does provide some protection. It also, of course, I use the little ear of the boot to attach a knife on there. So I do have a boot knife on there that it's more difficult to do with like tennis shoes. And that's about it, honestly. Pretty great for down here in the Southwest where it's warmer weather. I would not recommend for cold weather. If I was in Alaska, I would not be wearing cowboy boots, in the middle of winter. You're going to freeze your feet. But for the desert, they have their uses.
All right. So next question comes from Santos Salinas, 4221. Are you gonna do another knife collab? I think he's referring to James.
Yes, actually, I hope you watched our video a couple of weeks ago where we have a new snake eater inbound. So For those of you who don't know, long story short, I had a design called the Snake Eater with the previous maker who turned out to be just a very untrustworthy person. And as much as, he was talented and I very much enjoyed that knife, we had a falling out just because the guy just ended up keeping people's money and never made them a knife. And to this day, some people paid over $400 for a knife, and 5 years later, he still hasn't made them. And so once I caught on that he was not a very honorable person, we stopped making the Snake Eater, and I've been shopping around for another, dependable and, talented knife maker. And this is made by Bear Forest Knives. That's his logo. Bear Forest Knives, if you haven't heard of them, is a small American business, and I'm loving it so far. Now, this is a prototype. There are some changes happening before the final version is done. So it's going to be a little different from this, but overall, I'd say about 90% is going to be the same. I will have a knife video, like testing footage, pretty soon in about a week or two. Also, with that being said, I have had a boot knife idea for a couple of years rattling around in my mind, and I've just been so jaded with the whole knife thing with what happened with Woody Smith that it just was not worth it. It just was not worth it getting it up and getting the design out there. But I'm feeling really good with Bear Forest Knives, and once the Snake Eater is up and going, and all that stuff, then I'll start devoting some ideas to the Kid. That's the tentative title right now of the boot knife that I'm working on. So it's not going to be exactly like this. Don't think like it's a shrunken down Snake Eater. It's going to be something more like of a utility knife, something a little bit more of a beater type knife, a lot smaller, of course, to go in your boot. But fingers crossed pretty soon.
All right, so next question comes from CS Ranch 78. Just before I do his question, I want to say thank you. I know you've been a supporter of Cuervo for like the longest time, so my heart goes up to you, sir. Thank you. And he asks, new album coming soon? So as of right now, yes and no. But I'm working on a lot of other things for it. So I like to swim around with ideas and just live with them for a little bit before they go into full development of me. Like, okay, I want this sound, and how do we expand on that idea and make it mean something along the lines of like technicalities, equipment, and stuff like that. So yeah, there still needs to be a little bit more building of new equipment, but yeah, I am working on new stuff. On the plus side, there is a new EP coming out soon for Adios Cowboy. It'll feature 2-3 tracks, and just to keep the flow going, and just, I don't know if it's a taste for the future of the new album, but it is its own thing. So thank you for asking.
Also, keep in mind that Cuervo Negro music, is going to be found on iTunes, Spotify, Bandcamp.
YouTube stories too, and TikTok and Instagram. Even if it's for 15 seconds, it's still something. But it's so cool. I mean, I appreciate any kind of support. All right, so next question comes from Alex9048. Which Red Dead Redemption character fits y'all the best? In case you didn't know, Red Dead Redemption is a video game by a company called Rockstar, and it's a Western themed video game.
There's 2 games, 1 and 2.
Oh yeah, right. So I don't know if he's referring to 1 or 2, but just the universe in general. But yeah, it's a pretty cool video game.
We got lawmen in 3 different states after us. They chased us from the west, they chased us over the mountains.
We'll need an extra gun.
So the character that fits me the best is Uncle.
I'm real sick, John. Lumbago. It's a slow and painful death, my brother.
I got the lumbago, But no, seriously, the character that I've always admired, besides like Arthur and John, is Charles Smith. I can relate to his stern and reservedness, and he's quiet, but he gives this very high energy of being strong and loyal and stuff like that. I like Charles Smith. Also, maybe because he's also a mix from between African American and Native American, and I and more James and me were kind of mixed too, so can relate to that, like the stray dog kind of feeling to it. So yeah, that's my choice.
I could definitely see you as Charles Smith for sure. Definitely.
Charles Smith has also appeared and is unsurprisingly a pillar of strength.
As for myself, which character do I relate to? By the way, this is a fantastic game. I mean, Red Dead Redemption 2 is like one of the greatest games and stories of all time. Beautiful stuff. Character that I would have to go with is Dutch, the gang leader. Now, Dutch is, very wise and very grandiose and dramatic and educated, but he's also just very scheming and biting off more than he can chew.
One more big score. We got enough money to leave. What do you think?
And I'm very much like that. I'm very much, I got a plan and we're going to do this. And one more thing we got to do over here. And sometimes I get out of, we stray too far. And Cuervo's got to kind of rein me in because I'm just trying to do this and that and coming up with this plan and that plan and this backup. So Dutch, at least before he kind of his descent into madness, I can be that Dutch. And in a lot of ways, like, you're the one that's got to kind of rein me in sometimes and like, kind of, hey, like, take a step back. We need to, like, common sense, take over a little bit.
I told you we was moving up in this world. Deputies.
You have finally lost your mind.
But yeah, definitely Dutch. But yeah, that was a very cool question.
I can see that too. Dutch also romanticizes a lot at the beginning of the story. I mean, with his books and like he listens to music and yeah, I could see totally James.
Hey, now, of course, there's gonna be casualties.
We're thieves in a world that don't want us no more.
We are dreamers in an ever duller world of facts. Now, I'll give you that, but come on. We got the day.
Well, folks, that's about it for our Q&A. This was a very fun session. I hope this helped you in case you had any lingering questions, you wanted any insight to some behind-the-scenes stuff, or just getting to know us in general. These are always very fun and relaxing. Once again, also apologies. We've been a little slow on the channel. Once again, weather has been bad, and then it was tax season, so I was really busy with that stuff, and then, work schedules and all that stuff. So apologies for being behind, but we're going to be catching up as soon as possible. It looks like finally this coming next week, the dust is finally over and we can just kind of get back to camping and all that stuff. I do have a stealth camping video planned and a regular overnighter in the mountains as well. So with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. Comment down below if you have any future questions for our next Q&A, which will be probably in autumn, or any suggestions, critiques, anything like that. Let us know. Let's get a conversation going. So as always, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week with another video. Now go outside and get your boots dirty.